No, I think they forgot Kraven wasn't Vixen. He doesn't
Oh,
have all the animal powers. Like he can't see like a falcon when he wants to. He can't fly when he wants to, like Vixen can.
hi, I'm Shamar Griffith.
And I'm Andrew Tejada. We're going through superhero productions to let you know if they're still fun or the hype around it was dumb on
Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. Welcome to this week's installment of Cape or Cap, a Black Nerd superhero podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codename Comic Shams.
And I am Andrew Tejada, codename Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year The Ghost and the Darkness premiered. It's a film that's a fictionalized account of a real events of two lions called the Savo man-eaters that absolutely tore apart all these construction workers in Kenya. So this movie depicted the struggle of people to beat these lions before the lions just ate everyone. And in the movie, there is a chance where someone claims to have killed a lion with a single gunshot, which coincidentally, if it happened in Craven, the movie would be over much, much faster because the plot would have never started.
All right. Calling it right now, also, most Jack character of this film is that damn lion. That wasn't Mufasa. That wasn't Simba. That wasn't even Aslan. That was the lion that Lion King ripped off of. I think his name was Kimba.
Yeah, yeah.
This was him all grown up, disgruntled about the fact that he ain't getting no money.
No shine, no residuals. Yeah.
Oh man. Yes, we are. That is very true. If this movie did end with that single gunshot, we would have been. I don't know. Would we have been saved from a terrible movie, or will we have not experienced the greatest film of all time, seconding that to Morbius? As today we are going to be talking for our holiday special because Calendar Man has been bugging around in our ear to talk about this one particular movie, and that is Kraven the Hunter, the most highly anticipated movie from Sony this year.
Bar's high on that one.
Yes, very. I gotta say, I'm also shocked at myself that I've seen every single Sony movie that has been released this year, which is surprising because they were really pulling up MCU numbers.
Yeah, yeah, you know what? Some of these were almost really financially successful. Honestly, actually, Venom 3 is the 10th highest grossing film of 2024 as of December 23rd. So I
Oh, look at that.
can I recommend it? Absolutely not. But
Yeah, in fact, if you want to know our true thoughts about it, you can just check out our previous holiday special where we covered it for Halloween. But for Craven, which did not have a similar runtime to Venom, which I think was actually longer than Venom at 127 minutes.
I can confirm. Yes, it was longer than Venom.
Jeez, because I mean, this is already jumping into the spoilers about some of the movie. I'm pretty sure it's because that lion probably took like 5,000 shots and just kept on moving for 30,000 hours.
That costs money, people, and time.
Yes, definitely time with this film that got an R rating and was directed by J.C. Chander, who is also known for directing such films as Triple Frontier, which I do remember watching I think either last year or something. It didn't come out last year, but I remember watching it last year, and honestly, it's an okay slow-paced action movie in my opinion. Along with his list, we got All Is Lost, Most Violent Year, all of which has pretty great actors. So I'm assuming this is why we got a couple of great ones in this film, Kraven the Last Hunter, because he worked alongside Pedro Pascal, Oscar Isaac, Jessica Chastain, Robert Redford. The list is kind of extensive. But with this direction, we have to have our screenplay, which was put together by Richard Wenk, who is known for the Equalizer film series, along with Expendables 2, which is
Oh, what a mix.
yeah, which is not the worst Expendables movie,
No, not by far.
not
Not
by
by
far,
far.
as well as the Magnificent Seven, and yeah, I think that was the one with
Chris
Samuel Jackson
Pratt.
and Chris Pratt. Yeah, it was like Marvel does Cowboys.
Hmm.
And speaking of Marvel, the people that they worked alongside for Richard, he worked alongside Art Markham and Matt Holloway, who are known for writing Iron Man, Punisher Warzone, Transformers: The Last Night, Men in Black International, Uncharted, and my favorite tidbit from their career, the script for the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that was never used.
It's like I've been playing backyard baseball recently, and there's a mechanic where your pitcher runs out of juice if you overuse their skills a lot. And I feel like that's what happened um with the luck of this writer. I'm sure they have the best of intentions, but just the record so far is not looking hot. It looks like
That
just recharge a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, please. Especially because I'm just going to assume that they were the ones that had a hand in that rumored idea of making the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles actually shapeshifting aliens
Yeah.
that become anthropomorphic turtles that somehow have ninja skills or something. I'm never going to not forget that idea, people, because we see some terrible ideas in film history, and I think that takes the cake, in my opinion. All right, but back to Kraven. This movie currently has a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Hi.
This, yeah,
Whoa.
but wildly enough, 73% from audience scores.
I'd like to meet some of these people.
But the wildest thing of all is that I had to look this up because we I don't know if we talked about Morbius on this podcast through our jokes. We haven't talked about it in the episode, but like Andrew and I talk about Morbius in Morbin time, and I looked it up. Morbius has the same Rotten Tomato scores amongst the critics, but Craven beats it by 2% amongst the audiences.
So Kraven versus Morbius showdown. Kraven slightly beats Morbius. So I guess that's the question today. Does Kraven beat Morbius?
We will answer that right after this cast list. As we have Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is playing Sergei Kravinoff, aka Kraven the Hunter. His younger counterpart is played by Levi Miller, who, fun fact, you have seen him not only in the Supergirl TV series where he plays Carter Grant, the son of Cat Grant, as well as Peter in the movie Pan.
Okay, sure. Sure.
Fred Heckniner is Dmitry Kravinoff, who plays Sergei's brother. I don't have too much details on him. I'm pretty sure that he has some more things. I'm just loving the fact that, because he must be a versatile actor, that made sense for him to be playing the chameleon in this movie
He
with
was also
Billy.
in Sorry, he was also in Gladiator 2 this year.
Oh,
So
well, would you look at that? Well, sometimes some people just need to have one and that. But that's just the point. Well, that brings into a great segue into our next actor, where Russell Crowe, the original Gladiator, is their father. What was his first name again? Yeah, Nikolai Kravinoff. So, who plays in this one a ruthless crime lord and drug trafficker. He was so entertained that he needed a new avenue of income.
he went from the Pope's exorcist to exercising people personally with some guns.
Yes. Next up, Alessandro Nivola is Alexei Sistevic. If I'm getting these right, I am very proud of myself right now. but he plays the Rhino, who we have seen last played by, I believe, Paul Giamatti in the world of Sony Spider-Man. I believe that was who played him in the credit scene of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Shout out to Andrew Garfield for giving us some good Spider-Man action there. And we also have Christopher Abbott, who plays a character we do not know, a character who is only referred to as the Foreigner. I have so many thoughts about this. Jumping into one right now, I need more. I need so much more. And last but not least, rounding out our cast list, because while this movie is filled with people, a lot of them do end up dead. We have Ariana DeBose, who's playing Calypso, who is described in this movie as a voodoo priestess and Kraven's love interest.
No, on the Voodoo Priestess. That's factually just not even true
Not
in
at
this
all.
movie.
I don't even think there's a love interest between the two of them.
Not in this cut of the movie.
Nope, definitely not. All right, so now that we've gone through our cast list, let's start the hunt for a cape with this cape or cap review of Kraven the Hunter.
The movie starts with a promising scene, actually. It seems like Kraven has been captured. He's en route to prison. He's in the middle of the Arctic somewhere, and just on this prison bus. And I don't know what it is with superhero movies and pee in the last couple years. There's also a very specific moment where they're like, "Hey, everybody, go out and pee," and that's when they like, "Hey, Craven, get back on the bus." And it's like, what? I don't know what the obsession is. Please stop it. I don't want to. We know it's. Please don't do this anymore.
It's like, we know
Um,
people do this, but please, we don't need to see
yeah,
it.
we don't need to see it on screen. We don't need to see Thanos in the bathroom, right? Um, so eventually he gets to this prison and he finds a guy relatively quickly after like making some commotion, and goes, "Hey, I'm actually here in prison on purpose because I want to kill you. Because have you heard about this fictional person called the Hunter? Well, that's me. It's me. Sergei Kravinoff is Craven the Hunter." Which, I mean, sure, okay. And then he proceeds to kill this man and use every ability, super strength, super jumping, super agility, and his ability to communicate with animals like Eliza Thornberry to get out of the Arctic. And as he connects with the pilot, whose face we never see, and I still don't know who played the pilot. I think that's still a mystery.
No, yeah.
Um, like every great movie, right after this exciting opening action scene, we cut to 16 years earlier.
And here we go for I know we've been toying, we've been thinking about the idea of awards for movies and shows that we've covered. We did it for when we were on yet another DC animated podcast for the DC AMU. I'm already giving the award for most unnecessary flashback to this movie, because while most flashbacks are, a hit or miss, it depends on how it's done. I don't think a flashback should last what is now in this movie 30 minutes. We spend 20 to 30 minutes after introducing the actor who's playing our titular character to show him at a younger age, to show his origin story. Now, I recently rewatched, just a quick tangent, I recently rewatched the Christopher Reeve Superman, because after the hype with the Superman trailer, I was just like, wanting to get as much knowledge as possible about how Cornsworth would properly portray Superman. And watching it, I realized that, wow, in Superman 1, there is a full 30 or so minutes of pure origin story. Again, at the beginning, before we see the suit, before we see the man in action. Kraven was just like, we're just going to change that entirely when Sergei and his brother are picked up from school and it's announced by their father, played by Russell Crowe, that their mother has committed suicide. So I'm taking you back home, where I immediately jump into a hunting trip.
Yes, his father copes with death by proving his manliness and going on a hunting trip with his sons. While on this hunting trip, a scientist tries to make the Russell Crowe an offer, but he does refuse it. And this scientist will go on to be very important later. But completely unrelated to anything, we suddenly cut away to a young Calypso who we haven't met the of age Calypso yet.
Right.
It's kind of weird that we're cutting back to a character we haven't met yet in the present time. Um, so we see young Calypso talking to her grandmother, and her grandmother speaks entirely in exposition and tells her basically, here's a vial and here's a tarot card with a lion on it. Both of these are going to be real important real soon. So just hold on to these. And goodbye, I guess. Um,
Yeah, that'll be the last time we see her.
yeah, and never saw her again. Um, so she happens to be in Africa at the same time that Kraven is, and she's around as Kraven encounters a lion which they're hunting. But he feels it's unfair to do so with a gun. How else are you gonna do this, bro?
So I would say this is probably the most comic accurate thought process for Craven, because in his mind, the character never liked using guns to hunt. He does bare hands and bladed weapons. However, it does not play out in the way that we have seen Craven interact across every other medium, where instead his father rolls up, shoots at the lion, which then causes the lion to attack Craven. And again, this is the most jacked lion. This has already won our most jacked character award, because this lion might as well be Fitty, because this lion got shot at least 3 times and will still breathe in, dragging Craven off to do, assuming to to eat him as prey. And here it is that we have this very mystical looking scene, in terms of just like trying to like, let's, like, I'm just cooking with a little bit of Microsoft PowerPoint here real quick, do a little star swipe and whatnot, where you hear the calls for Craven from his friend, from his family, but he's dying at this point. And then somehow, again, to bring Calypso in, which I gotta say, look, as a Black person, I thought it was weird that they named this kid Calypso in the 21st century, given the fact that well, yes, she has like an African heritage, it seems. It didn't seem like her family would have named her Calypso. This should have been like a nickname, if anything, or even a middle name.
Maybe her grandmother named her. She saw Pirates of the Caribbean and she was like, "Hey, I got a suggestion for you." What year is it? Who knows? That's also a thing. It's never clear what year this is.
No.
Uh, it's not like it would matter. So Calypso runs away from her parents who put in point zero effort at locating their child after
Oh
she runs
yeah,
away
I
in the middle
forgot they
of the
existed.
safari. And she's like, "Oh, well, I seen a lion here. I'm seeing Craven's limp body. So I'm gonna use this potion." And she gives him the potion. So unfortunately, it's not a radioactive lion bite that gives him his powers. It's this potion. And he makes a pretty quick recovery, but his father insists on him going home. And shortly after going home, kind of apropos of nothing, Craven just unloads on his dad and's like, I'm leaving." And he sneaks out,
Mm.
leaving his brother behind, and then just lives in the forest. um in Russia, some remote Russian forest. And when poachers show up, he just decides to kill them.
Very
I,
aggressively.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, they do try to kill him first, but yeah, he just decides, hey, you know what? Today's the day to break bad and kills them. And that's all the explanation you'll need because we're back in the present time, baby.
But just to for those keeping track at home in terms of like how Sony's villain creates his villains, yes, there was another case of blood that was interacted that with Kraven with the lion that while it was definitely mystical, I'm not sure if the blood interacted with the mystical plants that the mystical herbs that took on. This is a question for Sony, not us. But now that we've hopped back to the present, we're still on this plane ride. So I'm just going to assume that this all happened in his memory. And as he gets off the plane, again, we don't know who the pilot is. We don't know who it is that's even sending him on these missions. Um, we kind of immediately hop over to Craven back at home. He's cleaned up this place a little bit compared to when he was a kid. And he gets a phone call from his brother. And his brother has this very unique skill where he can imitate the voices of other people really well. So he pretends to be their father. Also, to clear up too, they are half brothers. So this is another point of contention between their family because it does seem like Sergei is I think actually Dmitri might have been the child of an affair that Nikolai had, Russell Crowe's character. It is not really explained, but it does seem like Nikolai does have more love for Sergei's mother than he does for the mother who's never actually explained of Dmitri. And it does seem that after leaving his brother to go to be with his father and to do his own thing, Dimitri, they do still have a bond together where he does try to visit his brother and he does intend to go to London to go see Dimitri on his birthday to go celebrate with him. But before he does that, obviously we just spent 30 minutes of showing Craven's origin story of using his powers and killing people. They're showing him killing people by using his hunting skills to go and do that. So we have to do it again. Like it's Kraven the Hunter. So there's a whole other scene in which honestly the movie turns into Arrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Kraven comes along, these poachers, he tells them he fights them all off. And I gotta say, it's a fun scene, but I couldn't help but not see the parallels playing Sony's Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales games because Kraven leaps through the cars the exact same way.
Yeah, I mean, this whole action scene, this is where we can just get into it. The movie is
Mm,
structurally broken, um,
yes.
because it starts three times. You you can start the movie at the prison escape. You can start the movie at the flashback, which some would say makes logical sense, but who am I? Um, or you could start the movie right here. Some people roll up to Craven's nature reserve. He stops them from poaching, and you demonstrate his powers. This could be an effective, really fast, quick intro. You could pepper in a little bit of his backstory as needed, but this is where the movie, I guess you could say, starts. But you can't even say that because we also cut randomly to a scene with Alexei Stesevich. Sorry, I butchered that. I'm so sorry. Um, he's meeting with a couple of gangsters trying to make them a deal, but they don't take him seriously, so one shoots him. But he reveals that he has a pack that if he unplugs one little pipe, his skin hardens and it becomes as hard, his skin becomes as hard as a rhino's. So he's bulletproof. But he immediately, after proving he's bulletproof, plugs it back in. I don't know the logic. And then he has a sniper shoot two of the guys. Anyway, so he sends the one guy that survives to meet with Russell Crowe to try to assassinate Russell Crowe in the middle of a restaurant. But Russell Crowe survives, Dimitri survives, and yeah, you could say this scene is pointless because nothing results from this scene except you know that Alexei, the rhino, is gonna attack Russell Crowe. But I mean, again,
Yeah.
you could have cut that other scene and it wouldn't have really made that much of a difference.
Yeah, because it's a good story already where it's just like it's two rival gangs.
Yeah.
Like we're not so oblivious to gang war that we don't know that this happens. Like we it's part of our stories from what we've seen just in general. Like everybody knows there's always going to be a fight for land, always going to be a fight for territory, there's always going to be a fight for product. There are going to be leaders for this fight. Here it is. That is it. So now that this happens, Kraven ends up meeting up with his brother. They have a very great bonding moment. Unfortunately, though, um, this is where we get a chance to see more of Dimitri's understanding and side of things of how he's experienced his upbringing, where he's just like his father, which we did see in the scene earlier, tends to treat him as like a weak individual. And Sergei, he's just like, no, you're not that. Unfortunately, though, it gets completely interrupted when Russell Crowe's character comes in, and it's like apparently seems to be like the first time that they all have been in the room together since Craven had left. And they take a drink together because it's Dimitri's birthday. Dimitri and Craven go back up to their room where Craven he's unable to sleep because I'm assuming it's just because it's too comfortable for him or he's just too upset about being near his father for this extended period of time. So he decides to go and sleep outside. And then we immediately wake back up to him heading back to the place. He finds that it's been ransacked and he finds that Dimitri has been kidnapped. So he uses his abilities, one of which I'm just calling animalistic mass destruction, because he's just basically leaping from side to side, breaking down glass mirrors and whatnot. He also, it's never really explained, is able to see vast distances. Like, I understand that animals can see at like an enhanced distance compared to humans, but the way that he sees it is like he's watching it through a telescope. And I kind of wanted that to be explained of just like, I don't think lions can do that. If they can, hey, I'm not a zoologist, but like, I don't think they can do that.
No, I think they forgot Craven wasn't Vixen. He doesn't
Oh,
have all the animal powers. Like he can't see like a falcon when he wants to. He can't fly when he wants to like Vixen can. Vixen is very simple. She can use the power of one animal at a time. Maybe in some versions she can do some simultaneously, but typically one at a time. Here it's like radioactive lion magic. And then he can do whatever animal he wants, like whatever power. I no, man. He has no fall damage. And his only weakness seems that when the chase eventually takes him to a helicopter over the water, he's unable to keep up and in the water. So I guess he's weak to water. I don't know. Um.
you think you have a power of a fish at the bare minimum.
Maybe that's the one he can't. Um, so here again, because the movie loves introducing plot threads, so there's a whole thing where people don't know Craven is the hunter. So they're doing a mystery investigation and like figure out who the hunter is. So this is where back at the prison Craven escaped from, a man known only as the foreigner because he's not from anywhere. Um, uh, sees a guard. A guard has a gun on him, and he just says one, two, three, and disappears. And when he reappears, he's behind the guard and is able to easily kill the guard. So you're like, oh, super speed, illusions. You don't know. And it doesn't matter because now Kraven, the greatest tracker in the world, able to hunt everyone, is going to ask for help to hunt someone.
Yeah, because this is where we get a chance to finally meet Ariana DeBose's character Calypso. We last saw her, when her grandmother died, is when she the last time she saw her as well. Um, but in this scene in particular, it's not even known it's actually her. But what she talks about how she had a friend who unfortunately lost their life due to some trafficker of some sort and this friend was investigating in the manner, and she's a lawyer and she actually calls out that it was this person who was responsible for her friend's death. So Craven goes up, scares her. They get a chance to talk, and he shares that like it's been him who's been handling all the like he killed the person that killed her friend and hoping that it's a way to thank her for her help. In which he reveals that like he knows that she was the one that gave him the card. And she's like, "How did you know?" And he's like, "I've been hunting for you my entire life because I'm the greatest hunter." And it's like, why did it take you like 15, 16 years to find her then? You can't call yourself the
Yeah.
greatest hunter if you haven't even completed that one quest.
I, and also, it's like he knows who the rhino is. He's
Right.
familiar with this rhino guy. And I get it. You see some random guy take him, you don't know. But wouldn't it have made so much more sense for the movie? I'm already doing alterations, but wouldn't it made more sense if the foreigner kidnaps his brother and he's like, legit, I don't know who this dude is? And then he goes to Ariana DeBose and is like, yo, have you heard of somebody who can like do super speed? And she's like, oh yeah, we've heard of like somebody using a weird associate. And he's like, who's somebody using this weird associate? Oh, it's this guy. And he's like, damn it, it's the Rhino. And then he goes and is able to track off that one lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so it seems so obvious.
It was
Um,
it's
yeah,
exactly what I was thinking too. Cause like, yeah, like immediately after watching this movie, I was just like, why wasn't the foreigner the more shadowy, hidden behind the scenes figure that was actually manipulating everything? Because it would have been, especially because just hopping ahead, when Foreigner and the Rhino or Alexi finally meet, it's like, oh, I'm now just going to join on into your battle. And it's like they made it seem like he could like finesse so many things behind the scenes that I'm just like, well, why wasn't he just manipulating everybody from the beginning? Especially because he has, compared to Alexi, the foreigner, according to this story, had a more direct reason for why he wanted to kill Craven.
yeah, it was like his brother or something
Yeah,
got killed by
it
Kraven.
was like his mentor or something was killed back. Yeah, that was like, and it's like Alexi had nothing. He was just like, oh, I just want to. I recognize that your father runs the business, so I just want to take over. So he stole the other brother, but it's just like Foreigner had a real direct reason for being the main villain against Craven. So also another thing about the issue in the storytelling, if you just going back to the whole Calypso and Craven asking for help, he's like, I need your help finding someone. Bro, you're the greatest hunter. How are you unable to find someone as the greatest hunter?
Yeah, and the conflict here too is so quickly resolved because initially Calypso doesn't want to help because she knows he's going to kill people and she has understandably she doesn't want to be an accessory to murder.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, she, within a span of 10 minutes, decides actually okay with being accessory to mass murder and gives him the information he needs. This is also where again, when you are watching this movie, because of the pacing is so slow and deliberate throughout the movie, you might not notice how easily the logic falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
But in the next scene, it doesn't matter. We're skipping around. We can't.
I mean,
No
this
one
movie did,
remembers.
so,
Yeah.
so might as well we might as well too.
But there's a scene where the Rhino proposes to Alexei. Oh, sorry, the same person. The Rhino proposes to Dimitri. Hey, how I know you don't like your dad, and I don't like your dad. So how about this? We team up, we knock your dad off, and then you become the new head of your dad's crime family, which does some crimes, drugs. I don't know really what he does.
Um,
Um, and then we team up and we become super, like super crime lords. So his the Rhino's plan was to hopefully kidnap Dimitri in hopes that he could convince Dimitri to partner up with him after being kidnapped. And then if Dimitri didn't, he would kill Dimitri and then still kill the dad. But also, did he forget there was another brother
Who
that
was
was still,
probably more of a threat than the rest of them.
yeah. And if he doesn't know that brother is the hunter, then interesting. But if he does know the brother is the hunter and wants to kill the hunter and kidnap Dimitri to lure the hunter out, why did you kidnap Dimitri to lure the hunter out, but you didn't know that? Or did you kidnap Dimitri for your convoluted crime? What are you doing? Alexei, why did you do this?
Oh man, you know, I thought I thought Batman Unlimited was going to be the thing that broke you, but it seems like it might have been Kraven.
In live action, yeah, this is why did Madam Web make more sense? Um,
Oh my gosh! But let's try to see if we can wrap this up because mainly because I'm just exhausted over trying to figure out the hurdles that Craven was hopping over when so now that he knows his brother's been kidnapped, he calls Ariana DeVos or Calypso for help, and she there's a scene in which she sees some people entering her law firm and where she's like, I see five people. They look like they don't belong here.
just five guys in suits. They're not in tracksuits. They're not in like with carrying bats. They're just five guys in suits walking in formation, barely.
Right. So they head on out together and they head on back to where Craven stays, complete costume change and whatnot, where they get attacked by a snow leopard, they look like, uh, which I thought was weird because I was just like, you're in a sunny location. I don't understand how a snow leopard could be out here. Again, not a zoologist. If there's any out there, please confirm if this is true or not. This is a natural habitat. But it finds out that they're just friends. Craven and this snow leopard are just friends who they just attack each other at times. And let's just forget about that because now we gotta head on over to Craven's place where Calypso sees everything. She's messing around with stuff, sees all of his weaponry. She even finds the little capsule that she gave him that had the mystical herb and concoction that helps save his life. And as she sees that, she starts playing around with her crossbow, where she almost hits someone with it, where Craven's a little worried about her using it, but she states, oh, it's okay. I had training at a summer camp for this.
Yeah, yeah. So all those summer camps that teach crossbows to kids.
Yeah.
Um, it is at this time, coincidentally, that after her mouth is CGI'd to match some ADR dialogue that was added in post, that does happen. We're n not making that up. That happens in this movie. Um, they're Alexi's guys now are hunting Craven instead of
Yeah.
luring him out to
With the
where
help
they
of the
have advantage.
foreigner.
Yeah, but instead of luring them to another place where they have advantage, they decide to try to ambush him. And I mean, you guys do you, I guess. Um, so Craven easily tears through the goons with bloody bear traps and all kinds of means of dispatch. But then the foreigner catches up to him, and the foreigner does his hypnosis thing, hits Craven with some neurotoxins that make him see things he fears. So he sees spiders like he was in the Amazon rainforest before Calypso's grandmother died and hadn't seen her since. And just as the foreigner is about to kill Craven, Hannah DeBose shows up and kills the foreigner with the crossbow saying, "Thank God I went to summer camp," or something like that. Um, so again, remember that conflict she had about killing people? That's done now.
It's
It
gone.
doesn't matter. Um, so now that the foreigner is gone, it's time for Kraven versus the Rhino, y'all, for the fate of Dimitri.
So yeah, they're all under the assumption that Craven is dead because at one point Craven's the neurotoxin that he was hit with apparently is supposed to shut down his bodily organs. Thankfully, though, Calypso had another one of the mystical concoctions and jars, which Craven was just like, I've been looking for this and I was hoping to recreate it. And she was just like, well, I wasn't going to share all of my family secrets. Um, sure. Okay, cool. Like I understand that this is how it plays out in the comics in terms of like Calypso's the one that is providing him with the medical or medicinal concoction of these plants that give him the strength of the panther. Um, but it brings him back to life, which causes now leading us into this battle. Craven uses the in an earlier scene, he has a heart to heart moment with a buffalo stampede. Just mocking Mufasa and Simba here in our presence, though, I gotta say. So he uses the same buffalo stampede to get the to attack the cars that are transferring the Rhino, his goons, and Dimitri. And upon freeing them, this is when Alexei is just like, you know what, enough is enough. He unlatches the tube that's connected to his body that's stopping him from becoming more of his Rhino figure. And actually, just going back real quick, because we have to, I feel like we have to explain this particular part out because honestly, this was the only part that I feel like makes the most sense as a comic book fan of how Alexei got his Rhino abilities. He explains to Dimitri that, hey, I was a weak man like you. First off, didn't need that in my little explanation there, but that's what he tells him. And he's like, I went to this man in New York, this doctor named Miles Warren. For comic book fans, we know this as the person named the Jackal. He's the one that creates the clones of Peter Parker, which led to the creation of Ben Riley, as well as Kane, who ends up becoming Scarlet Spider, and also another version of Spider-Man, as well as another villain that comes about. But this also created the Gwen Stacy clone, but that's a episode for another day. He tells him that like this man provided him with the power, and this power was to turn him into a rhino. But because it was so painful on his body, he needed the concoction to also stop him from turning into the rhino because it hurt his body so much. And now, in this moment of desperation, he's just like, you know what? Forget it. Takes it out, turns into honestly, we'll say better CGI than the Doomsday and Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice, but it was not the best look I would have expected for Rhino in a live action production.
Yeah, and the battle is fine for a while. It is actually one of the better battles of the movie. But it does have a very anticlimactic ending where Craven hits Rhino in his really no better way to say this, his backpack stomach port. He jabs a spear there, and then the Rhino gets stampeded by Buffalo, which kills him for some reason, even though he's supposed to be indestructible. I don't know, man. So because if you damage the port, because the thing is, the port backpack is keeping Rhino's powers in check. So
Right.
if the backpack is removed, if the tube is cut, then in theory he stays full Rhino form.
Mm-hmm.
But he gets stabbed, but then D Rhinos, even though it's the opposite should be happening,
Right.
he should be coming stronger in theory, not weaker without the backpack.
Yeah, this is why I was. No, this is because I was just like, why not just make it be that like the backpack he kind of uses it on like a dial system. I'm thinking like Bane, like have the backpack, but he has it on and turns it enough just to be impervious. Like he still looks the same. And when he gets shot, it makes sense for him to be bulletproof, but still look human. But then when he gets frustrated, he turns it all the way up, turns himself into a rhino. That way we can have a better build-up versus like let's constantly play around in the scene of him turning into rhino little by little, or use it be that like, he turns the dial, it has some kind of like button system where it's like his hands change with each kind of button. So like he's a better fighter until he decides to go full rhino. But we didn't get paid to write movies.
No. No, we just get paid to watch what happens, which is Alexei reveals now that the person who revealed that Kraven was the hunter was his dad. So Alexei apparently did all that. I'm not going to even try to logically go backwards on this. But essentially, his dad was responsible, they're saying. Um, and he, um, Craven goes to confront his dad in the forest, who confirms, yeah, this was part of my plan to make my family strong. And Craven lets his dad get eaten by a bear. Hard cut a year later, um, Dimitri figures out that Craven was responsible for their dad's death. Dimitri actually cares about his dad now for God knows whatever reason. Um, and this is where Dimitri reveals he got experimented by Miles Warren, so now he can shapeshift his face. Um, he's the chameleon now, but even though he can shapeshift his face, he can't shapeshift his height. So I, I imagine that might be an issue when he's imitating his much taller brother.
Oh yeah, very, very much so.
Um, but now with this chameleon tease, there's one more thing to do before this movie can end.
Yes, we have our final scene in which Dimitri tells Craven that, hey, father left you something. And I'm assuming it was supposed to be like a weird way of a callback where Craven, when he was in his flashback younger self, he came across his mother's letters. His father left him a letter as well. And in it, he states, like, hey, we are a family of hunters. This is what we do. We are supposed to be the greatest hunters of all time. Something we omitted to share because I felt like it was appropriate to say it at this moment was that after Craven had been saved from his lion attack, his father, I guess, decided again, because he handles death by enacting death, decides to go and find the lion again and kills it. So he has it as a trophy in the space upon Craven's return when he was younger from the hospital. So he then tells him that, hey, you are supposed to be the greatest hunter. This is how we are as a family. And you need a suit that is befitting of that. And it is shown that he had the lion's head stitched up and made into a vest, a fur-lined vest for Kraven that matches up a little bit to his more comic book accurate counterpart. And as he sits on I guess, the make-believe throne of like his father claiming him to be the greatest hunter, this is when Kraven decides, okay, I guess here it's establishing that he and his father are cool now that he's dead, and he's just going to take over his father's mantle of the crime business and become a great hunter, like his father. The end. Very confused about the intentions. Very confused about the ending. All I gotta say is that I'm very sure that that vest does not keep anybody warm in any way, shape, or form.
Not even close. It just his abs are exposed, his arms are exposed. Oh, and if you're also looking for that shot in the trailer where he's wearing the vest and he lights a torch, that's not in the movie.
Oh yeah, no.
I don't know what scene that would have been or where that would have fit in, since he doesn't get the vest until the very last scene. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not there.
All right, so that was Kraven the Last Hunter, Sony's latest and now officially their last installment into Sony's Spider-Man universe featuring his amazing villains. Uh, in terms of our caper cap review, you've probably heard how we're already feeling about it. But Andrew, what do you think? Did Craven go out into the jungle and what did he find? Did he find a cape or did he find a cap?
He found a lion fur covered cap. Man, oh man. Structurally, again, this movie is just broken. I don't know why they chose to tell the events in this way. The huge timeline skips, the character motivations. I cannot explain what Randall's plan is. I cannot explain what Craven's dad plan is. I can barely explain what Craven's plan was this whole time, besides being Green Arrow. His powers are unlimited. He faces no consequences whatsoever. Um, I really don't know how this was. I tried to read through the behind the scenes to try to understand how we got here. I still can't understand. Um, this isn't even a movie to me. This is like a proof of concept of like or like a bad TV pilot where
Yeah.
they're still like ironing out the kinks of the writing and where they're gonna go this season. But is this a movie? Is this a complete film experience? No. And sadly to say, I do think Morbius is a better structured movie than this. At least its flashback was only like 5, 10 minutes. So like I'm cool with it. Better than this. Um, what do you think about is it a cave or cat for you?
I mean, going along with that fur line cap, I'm just gonna add a hunter's cap as well too. This is I'm I think that I'm like even just thinking about Morbius. Morbius had moments in which it was like comical or like you had like one person that was like seemed to be really trying to push the boundary in terms of like, hey, I understand this is bad, so I'm either gonna go really literally like meme quality with my stuff, or I'm just gonna just have fun with it and just call it a day. I got the paycheck. It doesn't even seem here like anybody really wanted to be truly invested in this film from the way that is cut now. Like, if things were flipped around, if flashbacks started at the beginning, if character motivations and team ups started in different locations, or even just hey, at the bare minimum, I'm shocked to say this. Did we even really need Ariana DeBose's character
No.
in this? Because I felt like, and I yeah, which was a shame because I was like, great actress, Oscar worthy actress, and I felt like she was absolutely wasted in this film just to be like, oh hey, we have to have a Calypso in this, but they weren't true to any of the stuff that is true about her. Like everything just seems to be like she's even herself, she's just like new to this whole entire world. So I'm more upset about this movie for just kind of like wasting a lot of people's times. In fact, I feel like Russell Crowe pushed the boundaries on certain things when it's just like, yes, I think some of his scenes were better than what this movie was calling for, which is wild that you have so many great actors in a film. And granted, it is a superhero film. You're supposed to understand that it's supposed to have some sense of fiction and not be as serious in certain aspects of like your typical drama where most of these actors are portrayed or sorry, are acting in. But like none of the story makes sense. None of this. It just feels like I think the TV pilot that's like still a concept of a plan is a great way to describe it. I was thinking this is just proof to me that once again Sony is great with video games. They are terrible with with movies. Somehow I don't understand how Venom is the only movie that has been coming out that came out strong, and even that fell apart by the third one.
Yeah, I think this movie was also struggling very tonally. So there's a scene where Rhino finds out some news and he goes, just like that. And it's like, you can't expect me to take this seriously as a family drama or a mystery. I don't really know what it was supposed to be, what even genre it is. Um, I really don't know what the intent was. And
Mhm.
I'll give you guys a 3 minute pitch of how to start this movie that might have been uh interesting. This is my art alteration. We're throwing out the whole everything. We're throwing out everything. There's no childhood flashback. No, we're not doing that.
Mhm.
We're gonna start this movie with Kraven and Dimitri are, forced to hunt. And you see Kraven, he's just using blades. Dimitri has a gun, but he's nervous to use it. And Kraven takes care of a hunt. Very last minute, very exciting. He's just human and is able to kill a creature by himself, getting much praise from his father. And his mother is there, but she's a little concerned. She doesn't like the hunting, but she tolerates it. She much prefers her sweet boy, Dimitri, who sings for her in these voices. Everything's going cool. You find out they are in charge of a crime family, but everything's going cool. And then one day, through the camp, this beast, not a lion. You could put a tease that it might have been a lion, but it's not a lion. Some beast rips through the camp, kills the mother, seriously wounds um, Dimitri and Craven, and the only way to save them is to do an experimental serum from Miles Warren.
Mhm.
Miles Warren gives them the serum. Craven comes out with, the suite of powers. Dimitri's powers don't manifest. They don't know what's going on with that. But Craven gets all these powers. And his father says, "Hey, Craven, if we want to get this freak, these are a list of people that you'll have to go through." And he works with his father as the hunter, learning his new abilities to hunt down, to get to the top of the syndicate, which is Rhino. You find out was the beast that killed their mother. So that's the launch point I would do. No childhood flashback. Forget about all that. It's just a guy trying to get revenge for the people who killed his mom. And then later you can do a setup reveal that, somehow Russell Crowe orchestrated these events. Maybe he paid the Rhino to kill his wife
Right.
at the beginning.
And then Miles Warren had a connection to Rhino.
Yeah.
Like keep that.
He
Also,
saw
another
what
thing
yeah.
I was gonna say another thing you could add too is just like I kind of given the fact that this is the first time we ever seen Chameleon in a live action, I would say like I had a love-hate relationship to the style of his face towards the end of the film. I think we can include the mask in that, like just say that he has to like the disfigurement that he experienced and with the experimental treatment, even though his powers never manifested, he still had to end up wearing this mask, whether it be like his father kind of mandated it on him, or he was just like, this is I'm afraid to show my true face after the incident or anything like that. Here it is. This is a great this way we have like a common accurate looking chameleon for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and it would have been fun to see Dimitri be more active. And
Mm-hmm.
because in this movie, Craven just gets wherever he wants at any time with no obstacles whatsoever. So maybe if you take away some of his super abilities
Mm-hmm.
and put like one of the leads to the Rhino in a facility that they can't get into with brute force, he can't just like open the steel doors. This would be a great time for Dimitri to use his powers of disguise to get Craven past security, maybe to imitate a few people along the way. Maybe at one point, Craven's like trying to hit on somebody hot, and Dimitri's like, "Whoa, hey, it's me, bro." And it's like, "Whoa, what? Why the hell did you do that?" Have fun with it. Um, and but put Dimitri in the plot. Ariana DeBose, fantastic actress. Her role is not needed here. We don't need to make Craven a mystical thing. Just use science. Because you already have a Sinister Six in this Sony verse that's mostly science based.
Mm-hmm.
So just lean into that. But the point of this all is there seem to have been 100 million plot threads from all the drafts shoved and Frankenstein into one. And what this movie really needed was one idea, one exceptional thing to build around. I like the Foreigner enough. You could have used the Foreigner in some ways. Maybe his thing is science too. I think his thing is hypnosis. I don't know. But this movie is a mess. And even though I still think I'm struggling to say as if this is better or worse than Madam Web. I really don't know because Madam Web is over quicker. So
Yeah, I was thinking, I like literally was trying to think about it. I think, in terms of plot, Madam Web had a better plot, in my opinion. But in terms of character development and even character connection, I feel like the characters in Craven were more relatable than anything that Madam Web had put in, because it felt like for Madam Web, a lot of it was just like, I'm resenting the action I'm about to engage in right now. There, and then it's just like, but I'm just gonna do the action anyway. And it doesn't ever feel like there's a reason for there's never really a moment where you feel like it was like, well, what if you just said no this time around? Craven was just like, hey, I hunt in this way, or I do this particular thing. Okay, this is the step that I need to get to in order to find so and so. So I think I would say, in my opinion, because they are both terrible movies, I would still put Craven ahead of Madam Web, because I feel like some of the things they were building on are a bit more relatable. Like, while I understand the concept from Man and Web of like, you have this power, you're not sure what's happening, but now you're also responsible for these youth. As a 30-year-old man myself right now, like, I understand I don't want to be responsible for youth that don't know what they're doing. Like, I get that. I just think that because it has so much resentment, and it felt like a lot of the things that were happening in Madam Web were just like, hey, I'm just running off of vibes here. Craven felt like it actually tried to like put together some semblance of a cause and effect.
that is true. I think there were I like for example, I think Dimitri in particular had a great there was a great hints of an arc here of like
Mm-hmm.
him being this very withdrawn childish person to becoming this mature crime boss. And it was acted well enough. He was just let down by the story and the dialogue and everything around
Yeah.
him. Um, and I think everybody else is pretty fine. Even Russell Crowe, who I loved in Pope's Exorcist last year, I felt he was more dedicated to Pope's Exorcist than this, and that's comes out in the material. Honestly, I don't think anyone in this movie is bad, but I think they're given the constraints of the plot and the dialogue, they just wasn't enough for them to work with. It wasn't enough
Yeah.
to make anybody look good. Whereas Madam Web, I think there were also bad performances on top of a bad script. So in that, in that regard, I do think Craven is a little bit ahead there. But overall, please, Sony, I know you want to have your own universe. I know you want to make something outside of Marvel, but this isn't the way. This
Mm-mm.
just take your time if you're going to do this. If you really want to build your own universe, just take your time. Get somebody like a James Gunn with a creative vision for what this whole universe can be, or just make Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield and
Yeah.
call it a day. Either or, I'm fine with, but just please stop. Please stop.
That's enough,
We
please.
don't want
No.
any more slices.
Oh man, but we were hinting at it a couple times throughout this episode, but we gotta get into the comic book stuff, because you know, Sony had a lot and very little to play around with when it came to Kraven. Mainly because, growing up, we knew of Kraven from the '90s Spider-Man television series. Very this like bearded, long-haired man who wears a fur-lined vest and is just exposed all the time to the elements. And overall, his general character has always been a person who has been a great adversary for Spider-Man, especially because his whole thing was like he wanted to engage in the greatest hunt, which is what he saw of as Spider-Man. And is a great play on to the short story of the greatest hunt, where it's just like man hunting man. So now to answer that, let's hop into Kraven's comic book section. We're hunting for some reason as to how we got from here in the comics to here in the movie. So, first and foremost, to answer everyone's question, yes, Kraven and the Chameleon are half siblings. So the two of them are the son of a Grand Duke from Russia, but they do have different mothers, where Kraven's mother is the Duchess in which he was married to, while Chameleon's mother is the servant that this father had an affair with.
Mm.
And because Chameleon was born, and just thinking about like our Game of Thrones logic here, so keep that in mind. I'm not going to say the actual word pertaining to it, but like because Dimitri didn't have this like direct lineage, quote unquote, he was seen as lesser. He was abused because of the fact that he was this child that wasn't connected to the actual family. But so like he was Kraven's mother didn't like him. His father didn't like him. So he always thought that his brother Sergei was the one that liked him. Unfortunately, he also experienced some abuse from Sergei as well. But he was always under the impression that the two of them were friends. And this was a story that has been building up since the Chameleon's first introduction in Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Mm. All the
Yes.
way back.
Mm-hmm. In fact, all the way back to December of 1962. So happy 62nd birthday, Chameleon. I don't know if you actually look 62 because you change your face so often. But his half brother, Kraven, will be introduced in Amazing Spider-Man #15 in May of 1964. So almost a year and a half later is when we would see the two of them interact. But it wouldn't be until Kraven's Last Hunt, the comic in the 80s that's considered Kraven's best story in Spider-Man lore, was when we found out that these two of them were actually half siblings. And like I said, they were not a crime family. They were children of a duke. So with Chameleon, for him, he actually pieced out on his family once he reached a certain age, because he had, like we saw in the movie, this ability to mimic people. And being seen as like a great asset, he was taken in by this like covert institution that will teach his people how to become spies or chameleons through the art of disguise. I'm assuming that the Master of Disguise probably also attended this school, but this chameleon here, Dimitri, would then end up becoming the sole chameleon because he was so good at this craft of first being able to impersonate people with his voice, but now with the skill set that he was learning from his school, make himself look exactly like these people. Meanwhile, Kraven and his family, they experienced the fall of the aristocracy, I believe it is called, the oligarchy. I'm never really too sure. I should have paid more attention in social studies class, but the best way I could describe it, Anastasia, or the movie Anastasia, that whole fall of the Russian aristocracy and all that, they experienced that. So Kraven, along with his family, would end up being refugees here in the United States, where he was raised, and decided to lean into this like hunting side of things in order to make some extra income and create a name for himself. So I will definitely say Chameleon has a better story arc here, because Kraven wouldn't be introduced until much later, and then that's when they started pulling him up. But the entire time, Chameleon has been working as a criminal, while Kraven was just hired to hunt Spider-Man by the Chameleon, by his brother. And they would end up working alongside each other in that issue #15. And this is when Amazing Spider-Man would see Kraven being introduced as one of Spider-Man's rogues gallery, while Chameleon would end up once again continuing to fight against Spider-Man because while building his criminal empire, he saw how big of a threat Spider-Man can be, especially when he started to realize that Spider-Man was trying to, even at that time, the whole story is him trying to become a member of the Fantastic Four by using his skill set. And because he was trying to discredit Spider-Man, basically he caused his own problem by trying to show off that he was Spider-Man when Spider-Man proved him to be the unofficial deal. He decided to just fight back against Spider-Man while he built out his criminal empire.
As one does.
Yes. Now, so the other thing too is that like in terms of personalities and whatnot, as I mentioned, Chameleon is more of the criminal side of things. So I would definitely say that the version that we got in the movie is very different from what we got in our comics here, because at this point, the very end of the movie is when we will see this beginning stages of this particular Chameleon from the comics. So Kraven, also another thing about him, they tried to show it in which he was like he didn't want to shoot the lion, but like Kraven is a very noble hunter. He wants to make sure that everything is on equal footing because on his in his eyes, it's he has to make sure that like it was him that took it down, not any weapon that was forged by somebody else. So that's why it was very confusing that we didn't get a chance to see this noble hunter side of Kraven, who, yes, while he loves animals, he's still a hunter. Here in the movie is treated as if he's more of a like dog the bounty hunter because he's only chasing after people. We never actually see him chase after really any animals. So Kraven, unfortunately, this is not the best, nor is it the most accurate description of Kraven compared to his comic book counterpart, especially from what we've seen not only in the comics, but in TV shows like that 90s Spider-Man, all the way to even like Spectacular Spider-Man or Marvel's Spider-Man Ultimate, or even I think there's so many versions of Kraven, some of which have even intertwined with Miles Warren that aren't being showcased here. So it is very, that's why I was mostly upset that it's just like we're not really seeing a hunter here. We're seeing a tracker. We're seeing more, yes, it's like a hunter, but more of a bounty hunter. So because we're not tapping into that, it just feels like this version of Kraven is just somebody that likes to just kill people and call it I'm hunting for sport, where it's not true hunting.
Hmm.
So that's those two. Now for everybody's favorite character, the foreigner. So yes, he is in the comics. He first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 115 back in May of 1986. The power set, which they tried to show in the movie, which a lot of people were confused about, but definitely seems to be accurate, is that if he maintains eye contact with you, he can slow down time in your perception for about 10 seconds. So in 10 seconds, he can do whatever it is that he wants to do. So many people are confused of if it is super speed or if it is that you are being blacked out during this time. So you're not really knowing what's going on. So in 10 seconds, he's able to just manipulate things. So I'm just chalking this up to some other descriptions about him is that he has the peak human conditioning, which is basically just co-phrasing of just like he's just a good fighter. He's not like Captain America or Black Panther or any other like fast individual. He's not super strong or anything like that. He just causes you to black out for 10 seconds upon maintaining eye contact with you, and he's able to manipulate things during that time. So if you ever want to fight him, either wear shades or close your eyes.
So he has the same powers as the original Four Loko.
Yes.
Gotcha. Understand the foreigner now.
Mm-hmm. Some other tidbits about him is that he has a love interest history that is quite shocking. He is the ex-husband of Silver Sable.
Sure. Uh, she gets around the
Yep.
the world, so she'll run into the foreigner.
Mm-hmm. And he has also dated the Black Cat.
Cap.
But yeah, when he and Spider-Man fought, it was he was also hired by the Chameleon in a later issue. So this is how we get the Foreigner got into play. He's just again one of those characters that unfortunately just gets lost to time. So I'm very shocked that they dug him out from everything, but it does make sense now why he was involved in it, given the fact that he has this connection to the Chameleon, and it does seem like this is just basically this particular side of the world of things, and Rhino being involved in everything. I'm not going to go into the Rhino because I feel like there have been many iterations of the Rhino that like people understand who he is, but I would say that the main difference is that like he at compared to what we've seen in this movie where he actually turns into the Rhino from due to some connection to Miles Warren, that is a much later version of the Rhino. In the past, it was more so a man in a very sturdy bulletproof suit that was put together because J. Jonah Jameson wanted to create characters and individuals that could fight against Spider-Man. And unfortunately, J. Jonah Jameson paid for the destruction of New York City, even though Spider-Man is supposed to be the menace.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is everything in terms of our comic book section. Like I said, there's a lot to play around with, but because of the fact that it's so intertwined with Spider-Man, I'm just assuming that Sony just felt like they didn't know what to do. But you could have easily changed a lot of these things, given the fact that like you had a strong presence there with the brother, the sibling relationship between Kraven and Chameleon that you could have played off with, especially with like there's so many building blocks of like that we saw in the movie of like Chameleon not being respected by his family, by his dad, more importantly, that we could have built off of. You could have played around with like, yes, like you're trying to make Craven seem like the good guy, but you're also kind of showing that like he was the sibling that didn't care about his brother's abuse from his father, if it was actually happening or not, because he was just like, it's my own thing that I want to do now, so I'm gonna peace out. And Foreigner, there isn't much you could have done about that. I understand that. But given the fact that you built out Rhino to be more of this individual who kind of created more of a crime syndicate kind of thing, that was more of Foreigner's background, from my understanding, given his connections to Silver Sable and Black Cat. So, given the fact that he was running in those circles, it would have made way more sense to transfer him from being just a hitman to someone that was maybe an assassin, but also doing like jobs for hire while also manipulating like black arms deals and all that.
Yeah, I think the moral over here is you can have a lot of cool elements in your movie and your story at all, but if you're not gonna bother to use them logically or to their maximum potential, then just leave them out and just make the movie simpler so we can leave quicker. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because just all of that would have been any one of those elements used to their maximum potential would have been so cool. I feel like no element in this movie was used to its maximum potential. So,
Yeah. Also, another thing, don't use the spiders trying to show us that like it's a Spider-Man reference. I think that's the other thing that always bogs Sony down. It was just like, we have to show you that it's a Spider-Man movie, even though Spider-Man can't be in it. Because like that whole scene where Craven, they show like Craven's fear is like spiders. How could a man who fights off against lions, tigers, and bears be afraid of spiders? Like, I feel like what they should have played around with more was just like there's like a hidden fear of like, does he have something similar to the psychosis that his mother was experiencing? Like him showing him in a straight jacket, not being free to run around the safari and all that, or even have it be that like his father is constantly like yelling at him to be a hunter, telling him that you're nothing but a killer. This is what you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to be. Even show like a version of him where he follows his father's dreams. And that I feel would have been more of a distracting thing than spiders running down a tree, given the fact that the man climbs trees like he's Tarzan.
anything, just anything.
Anything.
Ugh.
All right. Well, we don't want to keep you here much longer, but I did have one question, a wild question in my mind that I just needed to ask. Do you think the chameleon gets canceled if he pretends to be a black person?
I mean, he should be canceled for all kinds of reasons. If he uses the hard R, yeah. Um,
Okay, okay.
or any N
He's
word for
a
that
Kraven the
matter.
Hunter, not Hunter. Got it.
Um, yes, but it is in short, yes, because I just don't see how that could go well in any way.
And final question, because this was a holiday movie, or rather a movie dropped during the holiday season, is this a Christmas movie for you?
Only if you hate whoever you're giving this to.
Gonna
It's
agree
an
with you there.
it's an
Gonna agree.
anti-Christmas movie.
This this is like next, instead of getting like a lump of coal, you actually just get this in your stocking. All right. Well, with that, that wraps up our episode today, our Christmas special. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, be sure to support us either through a one-time gift on Buy Me a Coffee or monthly through Patreon. You can also check us out on our socials for updates on episodes and what's more to come that you can find across Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many other platforms. If you ever want to reach out to us, our DMs are open. So hunt right in, or you can also email us at capercappod@gmail.com. Take care of yourselves. Happy holidays to you and yours. And remember that if you're going to send your kid to summer camp, make sure that they are, one, more present in future presentations of any kind of activity in life, but also maybe check to see what kind of activities are happening at that summer camp, because it may morally corrupt their understanding of what does it mean to be a part of murder.
And if a strange doctor offers to experiment on you and he's not Morbius, he's Warren, take him up on his offer. It seemed to work out well for everyone. So give it a shot. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? Try it.
Thanks again for listening. If you liked what you heard, press that follow button and share us with a friend. And don't forget, you can always see more updates and content on our social media accounts just by searching @Cape or Cap.